Htp family, you're tuning into the pro-black perspective on KWAZ Radio. Today we're going to do episode 21 of Reading the Book of Power. I see I'm a bookman has come through. She says, Habari Zazabuhi, Habari Zazabuhi, I'm a bookman. So today we're going to do When I Look at Africa, and this is a PLO Lumumba speech. Actually, I want to say that this sounds like, well, I've listened to some of I'm a bookman's content, and so I would say PLO Lumumba's speech right now sounds like I'm a bookman's content. So I think she'll actually appreciate this speech, verily. But I hope you as well at home, you the other listeners, also appreciate it, because one of the things I'm going to say, because I have to review it just before I come into it, and he is giving that African accountability. He's recognizing that Africa is not flawless and without flaws, and you can't just put it on Wazungu or Europe. You can't blame them for everything that happens to us. Instead, you have to recognize and see what's going on with us. I would say, in summary, one of the things that I notice is that even though we have our own countries, we do not have our own values. And that's one of the things that we really want to instill in our people, our values once again. But other than that, I'm going to jump right into the speech. You guys listen to it, obviously, and then we're going to go into the text. This is also, for those of you who are unfamiliar, this is on page 266 of the Book of Power. But you're also going to notice, if you read along, that it's kind of edited, obviously, because he names a bunch of sports teams and all that, and I'm just not really too into that sports team scene. But anyway, this is the speech. It's on YouTube. It's called The Comeback of Great Leaders of Africa by Professor PLO Lumumba. Notice it's from 2015, so that's like 6 years ago, right? And only 20,000 views, but it's one of the better ones. And listen to it, enjoy it, and let me know what you think. I'll hear from you in 10 minutes.
When I look at Africa, many questions come to mind. Many times I ask myself, what would happen if Mwalimu were to rise up and see what is happening? Many times I ask myself, what would happen if Kwame Nkrumah and Patrice Emery Lumumba were to rise up and see what is happening? Because what they would be confronted with is an Africa where the Democratic Republic of Congo is unsettled. There is a war going on there, but it is not on the front pages of our newspapers, because we don't even control our newspapers and the media. As I speak to you, the Central African Republic is at war, but we talk of it only mutedly. As I speak to you now, in South Sudan, the youngest nation in Africa, the Nuer have risen against the Dinka. As I speak to you now, Eritrea is unsettled. As I speak to you now, there is an ease in Egypt as there is an ease in Libya. In Niger, it is no better. In Senegal, in the Casamance, is no better. In Somalia, is no better. Africa is at war with herself. This is what they would be confronted with. They would be confronted with an Africa which statisticians and romantic economists say is growing, but which in truth is stagnated. That is the Africa that they would be confronted with. They would be confronted with an African which, as Professor Mlama intimated in our presentation here, is an African which is suffering from schizophrenia. He does not know herself. They would be confronted with an African whose young men and women have no interest and low love for their continent. They would be confronted with an Africa where young men and young women are constantly humiliated at the embassies of European countries and at the United States of America as they seek the almighty green card. They would be confronted with an Africa where young men and women from Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, Mali, and Mauritania drown in the Mediterranean as they seek to be enslaved in Europe. This time round, Africans are not wailing and kicking as they are being taken away to be enslaved. They are being seen wailing and kicking as they seek to be enslaved in Europe and America. This is the tragedy of Africa. They'll be confronted with an African where people have lost their self-pride. An Africa where Africans are not proud of their things. An Africa where in the hotels of Dar es Salaam or Nairobi, even food has foreign names. When we fry potatoes, we call them French fries, even when they are fried in Dar es Salaam. That is the Africa that they would be confronted with. They would be confronted with another Africa. An Africa which does not tell her story. An Africa whose story is told by Europe and America, the CNN, Radio Deutsche Welle, Radio France. That is the Africa they would be confronted with. They would be confronted with the young men and women who have no pride in Africa. When they want to enjoy themselves, they sing the praises of football teams from Europe and America. It is Manchester United. It is Arsenal. It is Real Madrid. And Barcelona, not Yanga, not Mufulira Wanderers, not Gor Mahia, not FC Leopards. No. That is the Africa that they would be confronted with. They would be confronted with an Africa which does not enjoy its theater and drama. That Africa celebrates Leonardo DiCaprio. It celebrates Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. The Africa does not celebrate Genevieve Naji of Nigeria or Rita Dominic or Lou Jacobs of Nigeria. It does not celebrate Bongowood or Nollywood or Riverwood. It celebrates Hollywood. That is the Africa with which they would be confronted. They would be confronted with African women whose greatest source of joy is cheap grade B Mexican soap opera, La Patrona, La Mujer de mi Vida, The Rich Also Cry. Why must we remind ourselves of these realities? Because throughout the ages, the battle has always been the battle of the mind. And if your mind is conquered, then you are going nowhere. And that is why in the ages of enlightenment in Europe, the great René Descartes said, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. And therefore, if Africans are to begin to make a contribution in their affairs, Africans must begin to think. But the question is, are we thinking? We have universities in their numbers. Tanzania has universities including Dar es Salaam. Nairobi has universities, as indeed Kampala, as indeed South Africa, Johannesburg. We have all these universities. We have engineers. But our roads are not being made by Tanzanian civil engineers. It is the Chinese who are present in this assembly who are making our roads. So we have engineers who cannot even make roads. We have doctors whom we have trained. But when we are sick, particularly if we are of the political class, depending on who colonized you, if you are colonized by the United Kingdom, you rush to London. If you are colonized by the French, you rush to Paris. If you are colonized by the Portuguese, you rush to Lisbon. And if you are colonized by the Spaniards, you rush to Madrid, Spain. And recently, because the Asians are beginning to get their act together, we run to India. And very lately, because the Arabs are also beginning to get their act together, we run to Dubai. notwithstanding that we have the Kenyatta hostels of this country, the Muhimbilis of Tanzania, the Chris Hani Baragwanaths of South Africa, and the Mama Yemos of Kinshasa in Zaire or the Democratic Republic of Congo, but we have no faith in our doctors. In the area of education, we also don't have faith. Our political class introduced something that they call free education, but is free indeed, free of knowledge. Because they are so suspicious of those institutions that the typical African politician would not dare take their children to those schools. Their children will be educated in the British system, in the American system, so that when they graduate, they go to the United Kingdom, to the United States. Not that there is anything wrong with those institutions, but the agenda is wrong because our leaders long lost the script and ought to be described for who they are, our misleaders. But we are co-authors of our own misfortune. Whenever we are given an opportunity to elect our leaders, we are given a blank check. And if you permit me a little latitude, and if you give me a blank check, and you allow me to analogize, and you say that I'm given the blank check to buy a Mercedes-Benz, what we do is that when we are called upon Harvard, we buy what one calls a tuk-tuk from India and expect it to behave like a Mercedes-Benz. And because what we do is to elect thieves, and when the gods are consumed, we wonder why.
All right, family. Hold on a second. Let me take that off. I shouldn't have said that. So that was PLO Lumumba. Let's switch to the script. Let's switch to the book. And yeah, I hope, like I said to y'all, like if you guys know about, if you're familiar with Bookman's content, you'll probably see what I mean about the similarity. But otherwise, I got the learning curve in here. The learning curve, that's Revolutionary Matron. So shout out to her. Thank you, sis, for coming through. Bit of Medicine, and of course, Kofi. Appreciate both of you as well. This is it. That's a speech. Let me know, like, drop a comment. Let me know what you thought about that speech. And I want to say this before we even go into that, because it's something I didn't document in the Book of Power. One of the most impressive black youth of today is Ousmane Touré. Ousmane Touré is one of the reasons why he's so impressive is because PLO Lumumba took up the mentorship of that boy. So it kind of shows you how important education. I don't want to use the word mentorship because of the implication, but let's just use it. But just having a student, let's say, just having that, passing on your knowledge, your wisdom, your skills to somebody else can replicate and multiply you. That was one of the reasons why I thought it would be excellent to have, for me, once upon a time, I was convinced that I should have like 4 children, and I was like, if I have 4 children and my children have 4 children and my children's children have 4 children, then and if I'm able to diffuse my, intellectual standard, even at minimum, to the point where the children will build upon and develop on what I knew at the time, which in all due respect, it wasn't that much at the time I was devising this. I mean, it was enough for, it was pretty high, actually. I'm not gonna front, but even today I feel like I'm learning more and more. But the idea is that if you prepared people, you just multiply your ideology and it'd be that more impressive. All the same, Ousmane Touré and PLO Lumumba have that relationship, notwithstanding not being father and son. So it's just another way to stress how important education is. And I hope people see that. If you don't know who Ousmane Touré is, just look up his name. I actually just found him because I forgot his name. I searched Gambia Touré. I misspelled Touré. The way how he spells Touré is Touray. The way I spell Touré is Ture. But I looked up Gambia Touré and I found him. So just look him up. He's a nice young man, definitely about that Pan-Africanism. And and it just kind of shows how important it is for people to, be about that radicalism. But let's go into it. So I call it when I look at Africa. You see it's called something else on YouTube, but I call it when I look at Africa because that's really the critical thing. Just to give you some pretext, some preface, Baba is sometimes considered the greatest orator of the 21st century, WP. But the century is still young, which means that you or anybody else could be the greatest orator of the 21st century. The way how Garvey was the greatest orator of the 20th century. Also, I want to say shout out to I'm a Bookman again, because I do have that interview, that Garvey interview is going to be on her channel. Okay, so that Garvey interview is going to be on her channel. So make sure you check it out. It's going to come out actually in 2 days on the 17th. So, if you're not subscribed to her channel, do so that, and of course, if you want it like hot off the press, come to my Discord or even my Twitter, at Onitaset, and you can get it. I'm going to be boosting that. That. All right. So Learning Curve, just look at the comment. Learning Curve says, we are dealing with this same issue. We do not see the value of investing in ourselves and our future. We need African-centered education. Facts. And Alma Bookman says, I think he's spot on. Like I said, I was like, him and Alma Bookman sound the same, which is good because, he is spot on at this point. All right, so I said, but it can't be denied that the following speech is excellently Pan-African, right? And again, he's looking at Africa. A lot of us tend to look at the white man, blame the white man. I'm actually in this conversation right now on Twitter where people are blaming the earthquake in Haiti on America's, secret military programs, which is, it's fine, but it's like we have to look at ourselves as well. Not to say that people in Haiti have done anything. Obviously, they haven't. This is an earthquake. But it's more so when I say that we have to look at ourselves, we have to, or just look at just reality, the fact that, if you're on a tectonic plate, you're prone to earthquakes. If you're, the example that most people use is the hurricane in Katrina. But it's like, if you're in a, like I actually pointed out just jokingly, why didn't America send hurricanes into Afghanistan if it was fighting them for 20 years and they're really at war? Why would they send them at Katrina and why would they send them at New Orleans instead of Afghanistan? And the person said, well, the person I was mocking was like, there are no, like Afghanistan doesn't have any have any hurricanes, which is like proof in point, like a place that is hurricane prone will have hurricanes. And a person that doesn't will not. So, you don't need weather manipulation. You don't need weaponized weather manipulation to explain why, great weathers are like weather, like why weather's happening. Like, you would need the weather manipulation thing if it were in a location where the weather wasn't happening. Like if you have earthquakes. I mean, and again, like I felt an earthquake here in New York. I think we mentioned this yesterday in the Bit of Medicine podcast. So I meant like it's not to say that you can't feel earthquakes elsewhere, but yeah, the shifting of the earth is a massive undertaking. But that's obviously a distraction. I made some corrections. So you'll see in the speech I made some corrections. Like he bigs up Descartes, Rene Descartes. I cut that out, and all those sports teams, both the African and the European, I cut those out because I don't really value sports like that, and I don't think anybody in the future should. Value sports teams like that. Or the Wazungu celebrities and all that. So I say, he initially says there isn't anything wrong with the Eurasian school systems, and for such an excellent speech, I couldn't keep that misinformation in. So again, the Eurasian school system is the core of Africa's problems. For instance, he says, yeah, so, you just saw the Learning Curve, a revolutionary matron, she just said, we need our own African-centered education. That's one of the reasons why I took out this whole, there's nothing wrong with the Wazungu schools. Wazungu schools are the problem in Africa. In fact, we just had this prominent African Twitter account. Her name is Nsiki. She's pretty cool. She's pretty high up there. She's pretty established. She's like 111,000 followers, right? And she just kind of like picked on African Americans randomly. Just said African Americans are not as educated as South Africans. We're more educated. We're smarter than them by a long shot, something like that, right? And it's just random. But it's kind of like that. It's you could have this European education in greater numbers or greater density, and whatever you want to say, you could say congratulations if you wish, right? But the reality is that it's not so much European-centered education that we should want or desire, because European-centered education gives you those European values that we actually abhor, those European values that create that self-hate, right? Instead, what you should want is that African-centered education. That's the measure that should go through Africa, and that's the measure that we are not having as numerously. So Alan Bookman does point out that the interview is coming out on Tuesday, so make sure you guys either subscribe to her. Make sure you guys subscribe to her, but also as well as obviously the Learning Curve, as well as the Revolution, as well as the Bitter Medicine podcast, and as well as the Harsh Reality podcast. But make sure you guys subscribe to everybody in the chat, but as well, check out the Discord, check out the Twitter, and that could work. Yeah. So the Eurasian school. So I said, for instance, he says we have a number of universities. No, our enemies have a number of universities. We need Waset. Waset is that African university. Waset, for those of you who don't know ancient Medu Neter, I don't either, so it's all good. But Waset is it stands for. See, Was means power. Et is city of. So you see Kemet is, KM is black, ET is city of blacks or the community of blacks or what have you. So Waset is city of power, right? But when you look into it, Waset really was a university town. Like, it was where education was. And it kind of points out to you that, in the African imagination, education is power, right? So, if you're a community of power, you're a community that's highly educated, that focuses on education and African-centered education. You don't just need universities. You need African-centered universities, And by African-centered universities, I mean, like, pro-power Africa, Not necessarily, here's some good history or here's some, but really, well, in the Book of Power, I outline, like military engineering, civil engineering, transportation, those kind of things, like real sciences, real applicable occupations in order to really bring forth a transformed and changed Africa. And that's what Waset would be. So I also point out other things that I've changed in this speech. Let me just close something so that I could... just checking the chat room. All right. He also named a bunch of Eurasian celebrities, Eurasian brands, and even named African and Eurasian sports teams. I took those out. It's not worth your time or consideration, but so edited, this was an excellent speech. The big trouble, this is a trouble that I have with a lot of African people, or a lot of Africans that preceded us, right? The big trouble is the lack of a program, okay? You can point out a lot of problems in Africa, but the reality is that is a good point to start at. It's not, but then that's it. That's all it is. It's just a start. It's a good start, So one of the things that, like, a lot of our ancestors and of course our elders today, they really can tell you things that have gone wrong. They will not tell you a solution, So like they could tell you, hey, Haiti had an earthquake, right? And that's bad. But they won't tell you a solution, or they won't act on it. And then the thing is that if you're not communicating a solution, you're not acting on a solution, I heard back in 2010, people were talking, like discussing earthquake proofing their homes, and that didn't happen, but that's what should have been acted on. If the land is prone to earthquakes, you have to have earthquake proofing. And it has to be a wider, larger effort. Today, like, nothing. 11 years later, nothing. And that's catastrophic, really. But, you can point out that there's a problem. And I think one of the brothers, so when I was earlier talking about this conspiracy theory stuff, one of the brothers on Twitter, shout out to him, he said that one of the reasons why there's conspiracy theories going around, right, is because it takes away the agency and the autonomy of the Africans in question, let me see if I could actually just read their comment. Okay, yeah, so it's at JM Luther, right? LEWTER, and the handle is called Just in Case Armed Defense. Good brother. He says conspiracy theories is an excuse not to take action. Religion is the other side of the coin. It's either all a trap, no matter how you move, or God will provide, so don't do anything. And that's the thing. It's like, if earthquakes are just weapons that Wazungu is sending, what could you do about it? But if earthquakes are a natural phenomenon, just like in some parts of Africa, there's like natural flooding. If natural flooding is something, then you can adjust to that. You could adjust your life to that. You could make a pattern, so on and so forth. One of the things that happened in Haiti that we don't really pick up on, and this is actually pretty interesting. Somebody else pointed out, but there was an article in the New Yorker 3 days ago, or 3 days prior to the earthquake, that said there's going to be an earthquake coming. And an earthquake hit both Haiti and Alaska, okay, on the same day, within the same time frame, right? But the thing is that clearly white people are monitoring seismic activity. You understand? They're preparing for seismic activity. If you are monitoring and preparing for things, you could, and that you're on a fault line or on a tectonic, line or whatever, right? Then you understand, hey, look, we're getting readings that suggest an earthquake is coming. Okay. I mean, yeah, 3 days is a long time to seek shelter, but the videos I saw, one person had a piece of the building, they're being taken out of collapsed buildings, because again, they're not earthquake proof, right? So they're collapsed buildings, and if a building falls on whatever body part it falls on, it's going to break that bone. It's going to break that bone. And so, this dude had his leg limp and off, and that's just not even the worst thing that happened. Obviously, hundreds have lost their lives. It's, if you're monitoring these seismic activities, if you're preparing for shelters in the event of an earthquake, if you're shifting the economy to do so and so, if you're letting people know to be, I don't know, outside maybe or something, whatever it is, or be underground, be somewhere that is proofed away from this earthquake, or away from this this danger, this damage, you could make all the difference. And that's really what having a program versus the conspiracy theory. The thing with the conspiracy theory is that, it's telling you not to have a program. Like if it's religion going on, if it's just the will of some religious war deity, or if it's or if it's something along those lines, or if it's just America wants to invade and that's why it's doing all this stuff, right? Then, you're just like, yeah, well, what can we do? And it's not a what can we do. Everybody, if you understand it's a natural phenomenon, if you understand there are natural phenomena, then you can do something. And this is the accountability that I want. So, of course, he's talking about African accountability, but, you have to have a program. And that's why I talk about, Boko Waset Nakira, or even just, I'll talk into it right now about the wealth building, right? So Baba has a reputation as an excellent speaker, right? Let me just turn back up to the chat. Okay, no activity. I see PCs in the building. Peace, PC. All right. The big trouble is the lack of a program. Baba has a reputation as an excellent speaker. He was an aspiring politician. Elsewhere, he explains, I held 250 town hall meetings. I articulated solutions to our problems in my constituency. My opponent did not campaign at all. He gathered money and showed up one day to elections. He distributed money. He won. Africans are not moved by ideas. Their stomachs lead them. So, of course, right here, I'll correct when I say, I say about this speech, it was a lack of program. He says that he had a program. He has solutions to the problems in his constituency. That's one important thing you want to do in Africa. But look here, this is something that you really want to learn too. That you could articulate all the solutions to a problem, right? You could do that. But you see, the opponent gathers money, distributes money, and wins, right? Because at the end of the day, and this is something that's fundamental, he might be complaining about it, but it's something fundamental. And this is something that's fundamental in real life. Africans are not moved by ideas. Well, not Africans, people are not moved by ideas. Their stomachs lead them. Okay? People's stomachs lead them. Amilcar Cabral said the same thing in a different way when he said something along. He said people are not moved by your ideas, but by how you can improve their lives, their futures, and so on and so forth. It's really that quote unquote tangibles idea that quote unquote ADOS was promoting. What are the tangibles? You have all these solutions. Show me, but are you giving me money? Just to borrow from them again, is cut the check. You know what I mean? And I'm just doing it a piece of here. But anyway, but realistically speaking, that's what it is. And so, I say, look, this should confirm the solution of Boko Waset Nakiru, right? You need to develop wealth. At the end of the day, I say the program for wealth generation is Boko Waset Nakiru. Ideas alone won't work. Lectures alone are futile. Oratory alone isn't enough. Because look at this. I told you, there are ideas about building earthquake-proof houses. They weren't put into effect because in order to build an earthquake-proof house, you need wealth. Like I could go down to Haiti and say, hey, we should build earthquake-proof houses, right? And that sounds good, but where's the money coming from? Where's the capital coming from? You understand? I could say it and it won't happen. If somebody with wealth builds it, just builds it, it happens. Anything you want to see happen, make it happen. Okay? Oratory, ideas alone won't work. Lectures alone are futile. Oratory alone isn't enough. This speech with actual solutions is what you should write for your community. But build wealth. This is one of the greatest orators of my time, and he can't even get a political appointment because wealth generation wasn't in the program. Just think about this. This is one of the greatest speakers of our time. You would think somebody who could move the people, who could, who could get you at home to say, yeah, I agree with that. That makes sense. They can't even get a political appointment because they don't have the wealth. And you might say, well, why are the people so crazy to go by where, why do they go to who distributed their money? Why do you go to work? Why do you do the things that you do at your job? You understand? Why do you do that? Is it because you like the ideas? Sometimes. But real talk, the reason why you wake up at 7 a.m. on a Monday, on 7 a.m. on a Tuesday, the reason why you go to bed at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday, or 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. or whatever, the reason why you do all this stuff, the reason why you ain't going out dancing, shaking your tail, shaking whatever, dancing or flirting or what have you, spending a night out or all these times. The reason why you do all of that is for money. You understand? The reason why you ain't talking to your crush until 5 a.m. in the morning is because of money. So don't ask why these people doing that for money. Because you're doing the same thing. You're doing the same. You altering and changing your life and sabotaging your future all for money too. I don't know if I told y'all about my mother, but she developed a hand injuries, from working too much. You know what I mean? Or she would work, odd hours, and miss out on, dealing with her children all that much, right? Not to say that she didn't, she still, she still interacted with her children, obviously. But, the reality is that at the end of the day, it's money. You make the same choices. Your stomach leads you too. You're not moved by ideas per se. You think the person working at flipping burgers at McDonald's is moved by the idea of serving food to random? Come on. At the end of the day, you want to go get yourself some wealth. How you get wealth is up to you, right? But that's what it is. You got to build wealth. Because it's good oratory, good ideas is not enough. Get with the program, and the Uncobia can, and see, if you get with the program, Uncobia can be the political appointments, political leaders, and political influencers throughout Africa. You can bring our unity. I'm telling you, I almost want to do this video. This video is this white boy collected 10 examples of feminists being shut up or something like that. I only saw the first two, but the second one was pretty interesting, right? It was this white woman was like, why are you talking all this collective responsibility? No, why are you talking about all this individual responsibility and cleaning your house and all that stuff? Like just anybody like cleaning their house or getting a good job or whatever. How is that going to solve bigger problems like global warming and this, so on and so forth, climate change and blah, 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 terrorism, whatever it is, right? And she's like, you can't just tell people to clean their house and then like that's so stupid, right? And so the white boy, who's fully convinced in what he's talking about, says, his belief is that if you clean up your life, you clean up your affairs, your house is clean, you're working well at your job and all that stuff, you'll eventually get a promotion, you'll eventually climb the ladder, you'll eventually so on and so forth to the point where you are suddenly in a position of influence, right? And you can affect the collective consciousness. In the sense of you can, in turn, affect climate change. Because now you're, like let's say Obama, right? Obama might be whatever. No, people don't like Obama, whatever. But Obama can now sit up as the president of the United States and say, no, I want to be in an agreement for climate change. I want to impact my country's carbon emission. Whereas he can't do that if he's sitting back, with a sloppy life, or just angry at the world and bitter as to why there's not collective change. And of course, this is a white man talking to a white woman, really got nothing to do with us. But I would say, because really we probably won't climb up into these political appointments in these Wazungu countries. But you can in Africa. Okay? So the white boy is probably describing something that this white woman could probably do, or whomever could do, he could do, this white boy could do, right? Because he's sitting up there and she's sitting in the audience, right? But, he's on the TV and she's, on the TV asking questions. But he's on the TV answering questions. She's on the TV asking questions. But if we were to work up and develop Africa, you wouldn't, like the leaders of Africa, right? Wouldn't necessarily be what they are today. If we, as Oncobia, built up our wealth, got those political appointments, bought the political leaders, brought the ideas, and said, you know what, if my opponent is giving you $1, I'm giving you $2. Sure, why not, right? You do all that, whatever it takes, right? You get that political influence. You get that political leadership. You get those political appointments. You're now Secretary of Education. You're now Secretary of Transportation. You're now Secretary of Tourism. You're now the president. You're now the prime minister. You're not a congressman. You're writing these laws. You distributing the budget. You're distributing the budget so that Africans are building highways from Nigeria to Ghana, from Nigeria to Niger, from Lagos to Abuja. You're doing all that. When you do all of that, right? You make that influence. You make that change, right? But if you're not building that wealth, if you're still sitting back like that white girl, I might even go over this video. I'm not capping, right? When you go, you're just sitting back. Oh well, we need to enact this climate change, and we need to do this, and you don't actually elevate yourselves in your communities. If you do not grow or influence the larger scheme of things with your own wealth and your own compassion and your own ideas very effectively. If you don't do that, even if you follow Lumumba's example of, just going around doing 250 town hall meetings, but not realizing that the people are hungry now, today, right? If you don't do that, then Africa is going to suffer all the longer. And so it's imperative for you to say to yourself, what can I do? And I mean, like Bitter Medicine points out, if you say to yourself, look, I can't do that. I cannot do that. I don't think I'm going to go to Africa and be no leader. Blah, blah, blah. You say that, look here, just support the people who have that ambition. Ousmane Touré has that ambition. PLO Lumumba has that ambition. Oni has that ambition. Whomever you think has that ambition, and you could even ask them, say, hey, what kind of ambition you got? What's your ambition? What do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? You hear somebody say, hey, you know what? And you got to verify, obviously. You got to see how truthful they are, obviously. But if you know that, you work with them. You give to them. You support them. You promote them. Because that's what's going to change and transform in Africa. You know, you complain about the leaders and you say blah, 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 blah. Don't complain about the leaders. You know, they're doing what they were educated to do. Just like, you know, or they just working their job. You know, I don't go like as they say, or as it said, you know, I don't go to your job and slap the broom out of your hand. You know what I'm saying? I don't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, if that's what you do, that's your job. I ain't complaining, man. You cleaning this place and, you know, you making it copacetic. You making it safe for the, like, I don't, like, that's your job. I get it. Right? But you want our own people to have our own jobs for our own people. Okay? And if we're having our own job, you know, look, you say you're not the employer, that's fine. Right? But, you know, if there's a business that you like, you support it, don't it? Come on. And if that's the case, then support the business of African liberation. All right, so the Learning Curve put up a comment. I didn't know there was comments. Learning Curve said, the message was retracted though, so I don't know what it was. But she says, anyone that can be paid off is someone that will always be enslaved. That's facts, right? Bitter Medicine says, just get to work. Learning Curve says, Bitter Medicine says exactly, we have to pay for and build the world we want to live in. Learning Curve says, the question is, do we now become rulers? Yeah, so of course, look, I told y'all this. I couldn't put up this. Like, I actually recorded it, but then I got cut off a little bit, so I didn't, whatever. But there was a scene in Star Trek. Okay, I know y'all don't like me talking about Star Trek, but there's a scene in Star Trek that I thought was pretty interesting, right? There's this colony, there's this planet, right, that had exiled some people, right? They had a war, they exiled some people. The people exiled, then we're going around like robbing people randomly, right? So they robbing people randomly. They end up attacking the Federation, which is, you know, the protagonist of the story. So the protagonist of the story, they go over to the planet and they say, you need to call these people back, right? They've been exiled for 200 years and now they messing with our raids, whatever. You need to call them back. So, you know, the lady's like, no, they're barbarians. They wild. They can't be called back, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, the Federation does the usual. Well, once upon a time, our country, you know, our world had wars too, and we got rid of them. You know, some bullcrap. Like white boys could ever stop being, you know, about war. But here's what happens. They go over to, they find the headquarters of the marauders, right? And they're trying to negotiate, and they say to the marauders, hey, you can get some land, right? We can give you some land, and that, so on and so forth. The marauders are like, we ain't farmers. Well, we have land. And they're like, look, we don't have to have farming. Like, you don't have to do farming. You just have land. So then the marauder says, okay, we want some autonomy, right? And then the people on the planet are just outraged. They're like, what? Autonomy? Whoa, you asking for too much now, right? And the marauders, then, you know, the Federation, you know, this guy is Picard or whatever, he goes and says, well, you know, I mean, you know, don't be unreasonable. They want to negotiate, right? And so the lady who's in charge of the planet is like, okay, there are levels to autonomy. Later on, you fast forward, and the marauders, you hear the lady from the planet, right? She's like, 3 seats on the ruling council, right? And you know, she's just outraged that the person even suggested the rule, like seats in the ruling council. And the marauders are like, yeah, that's where the power's at, you know? And it's like, you know, I'm sitting there like, what the, like these white boys is telling on themselves. The power of any place is in the ruling council, in the ruling chambers, in the ruling seats, in the rule, you know? So when the Learning Curve asks, you know, the question is, do we now become rulers? Yes! That's where the power's at. The only people, like realistically speaking, the only people with power on this planet are the people that are ruling. You understand? You know, in fact, I'll tell you this, there's like only one country on the planet where the queen, like there was this graphic, there's this image. The Queen of England, right? The Queen of England could commit murder everywhere on this planet and get away with it, with one exception, and that being South Sudan. She could go anywhere in the world and kill somebody if she wanted to. And nobody has any legal authority over her. The only, because of so many, like, diplomatic immunities and diplomatic arrangements, so on and so forth. But the thing is that she could go ahead and do that. Now, I don't know if she's going to do that, but she could go ahead and do that because of her diplomatic immunity, her status as a head of state and blah, blah, blah. One of the countries that, you know, when you negotiate, when you make alliances, when you make so on and so forth, you agree, hey, you know what? We can't prosecute your heads of states and all that kind of stuff. We can't hold them accountable to your laws, blah, 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 blah. Right? Only South Sudan ain't in that agreement. This is something that we have to, I mean, of course, that was just tangent, to be honest. But this is something that we should grasp. That, yeah, who becomes the rulers? If you were the ruler, because, like, here's the thing, like, a lot of people don't like the brother for some reason. I'm not gonna give my opinion one way or the other. But, you know, the leader of Rwanda, doing a lot of stuff, right? Doing a lot of big things. And it's like, he can do that as the leader of Rwanda, right? If you are critical of him, or if you're not critical of him, or whatever, right? All that you know is that if you were in his seat and you were doing something like that, or you could do something better, then go ahead and do it. But you can't leave it to somebody else. You understand? I mean, if you leave it to somebody else, then have faith in that other person. But if you have a ruler over you and they're not on your side when you're doing stuff, they're probably going to sabotage you. Because the reality is this, that a ruler can do whatever they want to whomever they're ruling. And that's just the rule of the world. It's been that way since jump. You know, when the emperor of Rome, I guess, puts two people in an arena, like, that's what he could do. You know, this emperor of Rome could put anybody he wanted to. Anybody he wanted to. Well, anybody in his country. Okay, he probably couldn't put the pharaoh in Egypt, right? Unless he captured the pharaoh in Egypt. And even then, he probably couldn't or wouldn't. But he could put anybody, a senator, a quote unquote slave, or a blacksmith, whomever he wanted, in a cage with a lion, because he was the ruler. Now, if somebody else is ruling over you and they're not a part of your political party or your political ideology or your political identity, so on and so forth, then you're in some damn trouble. And that's what's happening in America. You know, to the quote unquote black Americans. You know, they're in some damn trouble. Because this white boy could just walk into anybody's home and take them into jail, take them to prison. That white boy could kill somebody in his prison who was rich. Just because, you know, allegedly, because he knew too much. Shit. And most of y'all know too little. And like, most people know too little and he kill y'all. Okay, what you thinking? Yeah. So, I mean, not to belabor the point, but yeah, we become the rule? Yes, you do. Shit, I'm waiting for it. You know, revolutionary matron in charge. Let's hear it. Let's see it. But yeah, Bitter Medicine says build wealth. Learning curve says absolutely. And of course, Bitter Medicine points out that they're telling themselves a lie. Yeah, I was sitting down like, wait, what? You're right. Ruling council is where we got to be. Because my podcast is going to be a little negative. I was going to be like, black folk don't be talking about no autonomy, real talk. Black folk don't be talking about no ruling council, real talk. We be talking about real, like when the woman offered land and the guys rejected it. They were like, oh, just land, that's it? Right? And we be like, we want land. You know, well, that's our ambition. I was like, you tripping right now. But anyway, yeah, you got to get land, but you also got to be in the ruling council. You got to be in the ruling circle. And you're going to hear on Tuesday, like Alma Bookman point out, when we talk about Marcus Garvey, the whole thing for Liberia, the whole reason why they were moving to Liberia was to take over Liberia. Was to be a part of the ruling council of Liberia, right? And they were planning on buying these politicians out first. They were planning on buying out these politicians first. I'm going to do it like Umar and say it 3 times. They was planning on buying out these politicians first. You know, they had strategy. That's what we lacking right now. But let's go into the speech, and you guys just heard it too, so we'll just go into the speech. It says, when I look at Africa, many questions come to mind. Many times I ask myself, what would happen if Mwalimu, well, I could do his voice, were to rise up and see what is happening? Many times I ask myself what would happen if the misogynist, you see I put down misogynist, right? Misogynist Kwame Nkrumah and Patrice Emery Lumumba were to rise up and see what has happened, because that would be confronted with an Africa where the Democratic Republic of Congo is unsettled. There's a war going on there that is not on the front pages of our newspapers because we don't even control our newspapers and the media. See, this is what you should be doing. Like, here's the thing too. You know, there was this movement, like I said, 10 years ago. That's the reason why I'm reading Wretched of the Earth, is because this brother 10 years ago, I went to his, like, I was in college. He came through and he said, he had this movement called Breaking the Silence, you know? And it was about the Congo and how there was a Congolese genocide. And I was like, what? I had no idea it was a Congolese genocide. I'm not going to cap y'all. And if you guys check my Twitter history, you'll see that, you know, I joined Twitter a long time ago. And one reason why I joined it was to follow the breaking the silence movement, right? This guy, like, come on, like outside of that, I wouldn't even know that there's still atrocity going on in Congo. Outside of that and that here and there documentary, I wouldn't even know. One of the reasons I even wanted to, be a part of the Pan-African movement was so that I could affect the transformation in Congo. Congo had a dam that at the time they were trying to sell it to Wazungu to provide energy for Wazungu. I was trying to promote it and make a message about that stuff. But, and you'll notice that if you look into the Pro-Black Compendium, you'll see I had like poetry along the lines of, bigging up Congo and all that kind of stuff, right? But this is the thing. It's like, this should be front page of our news. This should be like one of the bigger concerns that we talk about. We should really constantly be talking about, how we can help the war effort to liberate Congo. Like Africans on the daily should be talking about how we can volunteer toward the war effort to liberate Congo. Just recently, Afghanistan, the Taliban, a force, a military group in Congo. In Taliban, in Afghanistan, they were able to beat the Americans after 20 years of fighting. Right? They were able to beat the Americans and send the Americans back packing, so that now they took over the government of Afghanistan. Okay? Now the president of Afghanistan was seen fleeing, running away to another country. Right? Because they were fighting for 20 years. But like, that's what, and this is what they did. The Taliban is not just a strictly Afghanistan movement. That was Arabs all over the world, perhaps, right? Saying, look, we're going to join this war effort against the Americans and the Westerners. They just kept pouring themselves into this eventual victory. They kept pouring themselves, and they were able to free a land that was being exploited by some foreigners. And then today, like I said, and see, I don't know what the Arab world looks like, but I could imagine they were constantly being told about what's going on in Afghanistan, constantly being told that the American occupation is unjust, constantly being told about the exploitation of Americans and the treatment that Americans are giving to Afghani people, to Arab people, their Arab brethren. They're probably constantly, I don't know. I don't read their stuff, but I could imagine that over 20 years, they kept being told, hey, look, volunteer to our cause. Our cause is a righteous one. And I mean, I'm not going to say whether it's righteous or not, but what I realize is that what's going on in the Congo that we all know, and Nkrumah himself writes a whole book on the crisis in the Congo. And Nkrumah has passed away a long time. So we talking about 50, 60 years. We've been talking about how the Congo is so instrumental, so fundamental. What's his name? Albert Einstein, the guy who celebrated, I put the letter up. He's so supported. He's the guy who everybody, in fact, I think it was mentioned by KW Don 7 on Bit of Medicine podcast, but it could have been somebody else. But notwithstanding that, Albert Einstein, this peace guy, the guy who were like, he regretted the nuclear bomb, whatever. He told America, go down to the Congo to get the uranium. This was like before World War II, like before World War II ended, before America even had a bomb. He told America to go to the Congo to get the uranium. Okay? And it's been unsettled since. And are we actively engaged, involved towards freeing the heart of, like what we call the heart of Africa? No. We're letting it go. We don't even talk about it. There was a volcano recently. We saw the volcano, sure. But like, if 20,000 people were killed this year, you wouldn't even know. You wouldn't even care. You wouldn't even lift a finger. You wouldn't even do anything. And that right there is already sad. That's sad. Because I don't know how many people were dying in Afghanistan, but they fought them back. I'm not celebrating them because I know they're like some, they're Arabs, you know what I'm saying? They Muslims, they whatever, right? But you gotta say to yourself, look, if we really, truly believe in, if we're truly against the Congo being unsettled, at least talk about it. At least say, how can I help? I'm telling you, that's one of the things that inspired me, and I'm ashamed. Like sometimes I look back on my life, and I'm ashamed about that. The fact that the Congo's not doing any better, notwithstanding how much I've written, notwithstanding how much I've read, Congo's not doing any better. I really would, like, I would love to fight there, even if it means my life. Okay? I'm not going to go there Rambo. I ain't watched Rambo. I don't think it's going to work, notwithstanding. But I honestly think that, yes, let's be serious about the liberation of our continent. Starting with the heart. You understand? Starting with the heart. So Kofi says, what time is it for Tuesday? I have no idea. You have to ask I'm a boatman what time she releases. I think it's just going to be, like I said, I'm going to put it on Discord. I know you're on the Discord, so I'm put it on Discord, so on and so forth. So he says, as I speak to you now, Central African Republic is at war, but we talk of it only mutedly, right? So I don't know about the Central African Republic war at all. He's right. We talk about it mutedly. And again, he's on, this is 2015. This is probably earlier than 2015. It's probably uploaded on 2015. But notwithstanding, I don't know. As I speak to you now in South Sudan, the youngest nation in Africa, the Nuer have risen against the Dinka. I actually knew somebody from South Sudan. The Nuer and the Dinka are the exact same people. They're the exact same people. Like, literally, their origin story is that their ancestors were like siblings, but they had like different, a different philosophy regarding like the distribution of cattle or something like that. Like legit the same exact people. And if you look at, I've seen some, like memes, that they give about each other, and they're like accusing each other of cannibalism. Like this is the youngest nation in Africa, and this is one of the things that I also realized too, because some people will talk to you about Haiti not being in the African Union, but South Sudan's in the African Union, and what that tells me is that realistically speaking, the African Union is just about who's on the continent, who's not, because I think that's really all it is. So you say, I speak to you now, Eritrea is unsettled. If y'all would follow my Twitter, that Ethiopia is now building a dam, and Eritrea is being used by another country, or Egypt, I think it's Eritrea, being used by Egypt to try to sabotage the building of that dam. As I speak to you now, there's unease in Egypt, as there's an unease in Libya. In Nigeria, it's no better. In Senegal, in the Castle Islands, it's no better. In Somalia, it's no better. Africa is at war with herself. This is what we would be confronted with, right? And this is what it is. Africa's at war with itself. At the end of the day, you have to come about and say, let me have a strong nation. Let me just find somewhere to have a strong nation. And it don't have to be one nation. It could be strong nations. It could be strong leadership. It could be a strong community, whatever it is. When you have that strength, you can sit at the table of these disputes. You could sit at the table of these disputes and say, hey, look, no, I'm settling this. Because that's what happens. You have to realize when there are disputes in the world, then powerful white nations come around and sit down and say, hey, here's how we're going to solve it. Here's how we're going to settle it. And it's not because they're white, it's because they're powerful. A lot of people don't realize that sometimes, it's like white is important, in a white country, of course. But sometimes just being powerful is important too. We a lot of times we say to ourselves, look how many times these police are killing unarmed black men. But they don't do that to that white man, even though he's armed. It's like, duh. Why would you shoot at armed people? Like if you have a choice between shooting at an unarmed person or an armed person, you're going to shoot at the unarmed person. 9 times out of 10. You see some soldiers walking past you. And then you see some people, like soldiers walking past you with a bag of gold. And then you see just a random guy walking past you with a bag of gold. Who you robbing? Like clearly the soldiers just robbed somebody. Like clearly they know what they're doing. Like, come on, fam. All right. Then we confronted with. So then we confronted with Africa with statisticians and idealistic economists say it's growing, but which in truth is stagnated. That is in Africa that they'll be confronted with, right? And of course, this stagnation, I want to point this out too, because I put it on Twitter. Yesterday, Alma Bookman says it will come out early in the morning. It is not live. Okay. So yesterday during, what was it? Bit of medicine, right? The D Web was on, and he made a comment that I thought that I would like share with the fam on Twitter, and so, just let me see if I could bring it up quickly. Okay, so hold on a second. Should I show it to you guys or just read it? I'll just show it to you guys. I mean, I'll just read it. So actually, no, I want to show it to you because I think this is actually pretty important, even graphically. So bear with me while I. Oh no, this is too complicated. All right, let me see if this works. Hold on a second. Okay, good. All right, so it's a D-Web of Harsh Reality Podcast said yesterday on Bitter Meds how Africa has the most resources. It doesn't have the most factories, you know? And I think he might have said the least factories, but I didn't remember it verbatim, right? So he says, you'll need to understand. So I said, you all need to understand that. See graphic below and let me know if you peep anything. Be sure to subscribe to the fam. So make sure you guys subscribe to D-Web and the Harsh Reality Podcast, as well as the Bitter Meds Podcast, and of course the Revolutionary Matron, right? And I show you guys the source, right? But I'm gonna show you the graphic. It says, manufacturing, which is value added, manufacturing refers to industries belonging to so on and so forth. And you kind of see something. You see a pattern. All these countries are also like the highest GDPs. Well, Puerto Rico's a part of America, but all of them is like the highest GDP per capita and so on and so forth. The thing is that if you're able to take the resources and transform them, right? If you're able to take the resources and transform them into manufactured goods, and then sell them, that's where you're going to get the real profit. If you're selling, it's like if you're selling the phone, you're going to make more money than the person selling the screws for the phone. Okay? Because the phone is value added to the screw. Okay? The screw has value, but the phone is value added to the screw. Just the same, the screw is value added to the iron, to the metal. Okay, so if you're just selling the iron ore, you're not going to make as much money as the person selling the refined iron, not going to make as much money as the person selling the screw, and not going to make as much money as the person selling the phone that the screw is in.
Or the person selling the internet or the data server.
Yeah, oh yeah. Or the person selling the internet and the data services. So you know, that's what it is. You have to have the manufacturing value added. One of the things that if you scroll down the list of this page, and sorry, brother, I can't show it on the Twitter. I mean on the Discord.
It's good. I'm driving anyway, so continue.
Oh, okay. When you look at this list, you could scroll down, and you're not going to see an African country until you see South Africa. Suriname is kind of high. I don't know if Suriname is actually an African country, but it has the Maroons, by the way. So one of the groups of African Maroons to this day is South Africa, is in Suriname. So I guess right here you see Swaziland, right, is up there, but it's on number 59. Oh, Mauritius is also an African country as far as I remember. St. Kitts is another one. But again, you know, it's behind
That's a
China.
Caribbean island, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a Caribbean island. Yeah. But it's behind so on and so forth, and that's like number 50 something. South Africa number 70, Equatorial Guinea, and you can see the numbers are like tiny down here. So you know when you start out at 12,000, the highest African country is around 1,000, or I guess Suriname, but I don't know if Suriname is completely black, but it's around 2,000. But the higher countries are, you know, Puerto Rico being 12,000, Ireland being 10,000. If you look at the Ireland GDP, it's actually pretty high.
Puerto Rico isn't a country, though.
Yeah, Puerto Rico's not a country. Well, yeah, it's a part of America, yeah. Singapore, Japan, Austria, Germany, Finland, Luxembourg, Sweden, Norway, South Korea, like you Denmark, United States, Netherlands, Belgium, Canada, Italy, like these are countries that, you know, when you say them, you're like, oh, what's their economy like? Probably some good. You know, like probably the people doing well. People probably eating down there, right? Whereas in like the other countries in Africa, it's like no, they're probably not eating.
Them brothers starving.
Yeah, exactly. You see what I'm saying? But like, yeah, I that's like one of those fundamental idea, like yeah. So I think actually I did read to you guys at one point. No, I showed you the video of that the African the Sri Lankan Marxist who was like, you know, Africa's economy seemed to be growing, but that's because the cost, like the demand for their resources was increased. You know, so the demand for iron ore was increased so they could sell it for more, but then it was decreased. So it just looked like it was, you know, like it just fluctuated. Whereas they were not manufacturing. The real wealth was in the manufacturers who, when they improved, like when India improves its manufacturing capabilities, then it becomes one of those. It becomes one of those countries. You know, it becomes one of those countries that is really, its economy is actually growing. But Africa, you know, the lack of what I looked up was like factories per capita, right? But of course, what's a factory? You know, like how factories are not all equal. But either way, you know, just having less factories, that's already a problem. And just for those of you who might not understand, one of the bigger differences between socialism and capitalism, capitalism means that individuals would build those factories. You know, individuals would be in charge of those factories, you know, and be taxed, of course. And then socialism would be that the government itself would build those factories, right? And the issue that African people face too is that, you know, in order for an individual or for a government to build a factory, it needs capital. And if you're a country that does not have capital, then it's very likely that neither will the individuals or the government. Well, of course, the government will likely have more capital than the individuals, but then that comes back to poor leadership among African leaders, where even if they do have the capital to build the factory, even if they do have the capital to build the building, so on and so forth, they would rather Wazungu come in and set up the factory and just tax Wazungu. You understand? And that's one of the problems, you know? But of course, that also comes back to the lack of skills that Africans may have in order to build those factories. So you could, if you wanted to, have a government that says, hey, look, we're going to build a phone factory. We're going to build our own phone brand, so on and so forth. You could have that, but if you don't have any individuals that know how to build a phone, right, then you're out of luck. You just have a big factory that nobody could operate. You understand? Or you just have a lot of money to build a factory that nobody could operate. And I mean, that's why I said education is so important, because if you don't have that, then you just like you're already in a really big bind. So make sure, I do encourage everybody, go out, get yourself a copy of this book, and, you know, really like read through to the end, because the end is going to talk about the curriculum and all that kind of stuff, or the different educational fields that you want to engage. You know, a lot of people don't read through to the end, so it's like you're not going to pick up on that nuance, you know. All right, so I say they would be confronted with an Africa which is suffering from a schizophrenia. It does not know herself. They'll be confronted with an Africa whose young men and women have no interest and no love for their continent. They'll be confronted with an Africa where young men and young women are constantly humiliated at the embassies of European countries and the United States of America as they seek the almighty green card, you know? And this is what, like, if you guys are following the ADOS view, they're like mocking African people for exactly this. You know, now why they're mocking them, I don't know. You know, you're not really, they're not in that much better position themselves. But, you know, the reality is that, in fact, somebody actually pointed out, I can't remember if it was but they were like, look, because somebody, you know, we actually yesterday on Bitter Medicine podcast, we had a discussion about Haitians moving to Africa, you know, especially to avoid earthquakes and so on and so forth. And somebody said, well, I don't even know if Haitians want to move to Africa. They might just prefer to move to European countries or the United States. They might rather seek that almighty green card. Like if you really had a choice, like if they had a choice, probably say, look, why would I want to go to some broke, you know, because the person who made the comment was like, you could go from one poor third world country to another third world country. It's not, transition not going to be hard. But a lot of people ain't trying to go to no third world country, you know? And I mean, that's like you want to levy that critique, that reality. Even like there's a critique that we levy against African leaders, which is, you know, and Lumumba's going to do the same thing, where he talks about, oh, y'all don't want to send your people to, you know, black local schools. You don't want to send your people to local hospitals. Nobody wants to send anybody to local schools and local hospitals. You know, like nobody wants to do that. Even if I'm in Brooklyn, right? If I have the money, I would rather go to this hospital in Manhattan. Oh, I'm not me personally, but like a lot of my neighbors would rather go to the hospital in Manhattan. If we could afford it, a lot of my neighbors could, or if they could afford it, a lot of my neighbors would rather go to the schools in Manhattan. You know, everybody's seeking, like if you go by an individual, everybody's seeking greener pastures. You know, the Pan-Africanist, you know, mentality that says, hey, do not seek greener pastures. You know, seek the rough way of life, right? That can work for some of us. And this is what Garvey was really about. Garvey was saying it's not that he wanted everybody to go to Africa, right? It's that Garvey wanted the pioneers who could go to Africa and see the potential and make those greener pastures, so that eventually those of us who do want to leave, or those of us who do want to go to green pastures, because everybody wants to go to greener pastures, those of us who want to go to greener pastures will look to Africa for that. Right now, I'm telling you, I used to have classmates who were white folk classmates, and they were talking about going to China to seek one of those teaching jobs, because they were like, the teaching jobs in China, you go around teaching English in China, it's a good gig. Like, white folk in America were seeking greener pastures in China. You understand? Or when white people are trying to, or even like this, let's say the white bourgeoisie. One of the issues that happened inside of Brownsville in Brooklyn, right, is that, Brownsville in Brooklyn used to be a nice neighborhood, nice black neighborhood, nice black community in Brooklyn. And part of the reason is because they were like factories. They were factory jobs in Brooklyn, right? Now, here's the issue. The cost of a factory in Brooklyn, right, versus the cost of a factory in India is that Brooklyn is probably 10, 20 times, 100 times more expensive, right? You got to pay your workers more. The whole factory itself, the building itself costs a lot more money, and this, so on and so forth. The bourgeoisie are seeking greener pastures in India. Everybody's seeking greener pastures. The only thing that you have to understand is that the way that greener pastures come about is when a people decide to make a land greener pastures. The people who migrated to America originally, well, there are two people, right? The first people, the pioneers or whatever, America was not a green pasture. America was filled with the Native Amerindians who were at some point decided to they wanted to kill off these white boys who were still in their land, obviously, right? A lot of enslaved Africans who were brought to America were brought to clear out the forest. Where I'm standing right now in New York used to be a forest. Okay? It used to be a forest. Like, if you look at Brooklyn now, you would not know that it was a forest. I mean, real talk, if you're being very literal, it used to be like, well, not when the Pilgrims came or whomever, pioneers in a sense, not when they came, but it used to be where dinosaurs walked around. You know what I mean? Like dinosaurs used to walk around in the chicken place. But I mean, obviously that's like, whatever. But it's just a joke, right? But the point being that it used to be a forest. They brought Africans here to clear out that forest. They forced Africans here to clear out the forest.
About a few million years off.
No, I know. It's just something to think about when you look at the skyline and you're like, there used to be like dinosaurs flying around. Ain't that crazy? It's just weird.
T-Rexes and raptors everywhere.
No, but dinosaurs flying, man. Like what? All right, but I mean, there weren't any humans as far as I can tell. But anyway, so the a few million years. But the thing is this, that everybody's looking for greener pastures. So the white boys said, oh, we could actually set up a colony. We could set up a land of our own. We could get away from this religious tyranny. We could get away from this, this king and their, whatever. And then eventually the king came around and said, nah, we're going to do whatever we want over here too. But the reality is this, that everybody's looking for greener pastures. I told y'all about this. I don't know if it was during the Wretched of the Earth thing, but where white people used to come to California under the pretext that there were naked black women, and ruled by a queen named Queen Califia. That's where California comes around. But they were seeking greener pastures. And of course, wider hips, you know what I'm saying? But, that's disgusting, by the way. But, it is what it is, right? But everybody's seeking greener pastures. So, we condemn the politician, for sending this kid to the Wazungu school and so on and so forth. But you got to realize that your objective in this world is to set up some greener pastures, greener pastures. To either to live in greener pastures or set up greener pastures. And the reality is, I think the word I use is seek and develop. Seek and develop greener pastures. Okay, everybody's seeking greener pastures, but you have to develop those greener pastures in Africa because you should be of the reality that no matter how green this grass looks, right? I'll never have rulership here. I'll never be the ruler here. I'll always be under somebody else's authority. I want to just touch on this really quickly. My kid, he sometimes wakes up in the morning and just searches stuff on YouTube. You know, I don't know how he does it, but he does it, right? Pink Fong is, you guys know Pink Fong. Pink Fong is that, you know, Baby Shark song. It was like a huge hit once upon a time. I don't know how he found this thing. I'll be honest, because I definitely couldn't find it myself, right? So Pink Fong has these other videos where they're talking about, and they're just talking about safety tips, you know? And, you know, sometimes I wake up in the morning and I hear him playing it, and I don't know how he gets into it, but he, you know, it's playing. And one of the things that they have is like, they're telling you don't talk to strangers, you know? If a stranger, like they show like an innocent looking cat person, you know, saying, hey, you lost your family? Have you, you know, can I help you? You know, I can help you find your family. And they're teaching the kids to be like, no, ew, yucky, you know, whatever, right? Which is a good thing. But then they advise, if you're lost, if you're separated from your parents, then go find the authorities. Find somebody in a uniform, right? And then tell them, you know, your name, your address, so on and so forth, right? And see, look, that's great advice. It's great advice. But if you don't trust the authorities where you're at, then you're in fucking trouble. You are in trouble, because the reality is this: if you are separate, like the reality is this, that the authorities, if you will, are supposed to be on your side. They're supposed to be something where if you are, like, for instance, your kid is lost, that they have to go to those authorities. If the authorities are not on your side, then you are in the wrong area, because you are going to, like you're basically a slave. You're basically going to die. If not, you know, if not physically, spiritually, and mentally. Okay? Because yes, you know, like there's nothing more to say about that. You know? If you build a community of your own, if you develop a country of your own, then the authorities will be on your side. And that advice is good, because I think Pink Fong is like a Chinese company or Japanese company or something like that, some Asian company. So when they see the authorities, they're like, hey, you know what? I'm Chinese, you're Chinese. We'll help each other out, right? You ain't American. You ain't British. You ain't French. You understand? And look, real talk. If you are part of one of these colonial institutions, you're not Nigerian. You understand? You're not Jamaican. You're not Haitian. You understand? Now, obviously, you know, some people are going to think that's a little extreme. Yeah, sure. It is. But what you want to do is you want to be a part of what I call Ancobia, but a Ancobia nation, a real Pan-African, Ma'at following nation, whatever you want to call it, whatever spiritual system you want to call it, because they're all derived from the same source. But you want that, so that when you are confronted by these authorities, you know they're on your side. You know they're not going to sell you.
Snatch up the cat lady.
You said what? Not trust the cat lady?
Snatch up the cat woman.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a bunch of animal people. I don't know what that was about, but
that kind of sound like a weird like fetish.
Nah, it's kid stuff. It's kid stuff. Kids, you know.
Oh, it's kid stuff.
Yeah, Pink Fong. You never heard of Baby Shark?
I don't have any kids.
It was like one of the. It's like, I think it's like the most viewed video on YouTube.
Oh, you mean like that? Was that Baby Shark? Dude.
Yeah.
That song was catchy.
For kids, yeah. All right. Anyway, shit didn't catch me. That's all I tell y'all. I'll tell y'all right now. Yo, dude, talking about that song's catchy. Anyway, let me see if there's any comments. Come on early. Learning Curve says, unfortunately, this is why ADOS diaspora think it's better to stay in America than join Africa. Yeah. Harsh Reality Podcast says, peace, fam. Harsh Reality here. That's nice. Peace, family. There's three of us right here. So that's the Kitty Razy people right there. If y'all don't know, Learning Curve, Harsh Reality Podcast, and Bitter Medicine Podcast.
And the Maroon Village up in this bit.
Nah. Maroon, nah. We got 97 Lemon with us.
Hysterical. Hysterical.
Bitter Medicine says, yeah, most don't want to move to third world. Folks want to move up. Yeah, I mean, like that was the show. Moving on up. Like that was a whole business. You know, like it wasn't. You don't celebrate. You don't make a show about you moving from one hood to another hood. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that. I mean, even Will Smith. The Will Smith movie show was about that, where he was like, oh, I used to live in the hood and then I moved to Bel Air, you know? Harsh Reality said, not necessarily true. Nigeria recently had protests and fighting due to police brutality, and the entire police force consists of other Nigerians.
That's
exactly.
Philadelphia, born and raised.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I said.
On the playground, that's what I spent most of my day.
All right, bro, we got you. We got you, 97. I got you, Lemon. This is funny. All right,
You gonna run
Archaeology
that to the
Podcast says,
ground, huh?
what do you say?
You gonna run that to the ground?
Yo, you used to being the coolest person in the room, but you know it ain't work that way. All right. Yeah, he said Nigeria true. Nigeria, yeah, exactly. Nigeria had protests against the thing. So that was one of the other things that the same brother that we brought up yesterday was pointing out about how you don't say like when you. He was like, I agree that Africans didn't sell their own people because a lot of people do not like the bourgeoisie is not going to consider the proletariat or the peasant their own people, Like and that's something that we see today. Because I remember I was walking through Wall Street one time. I don't usually go down to Wall Street, but I'm walking down Wall Street, and this is where all the rich cats is, right? White boy walking by. No, I see this homeless guy, with his hand out, sticking his hand out, and this rich guy, businessman, big suit. He just takes the long way around this guy. And it's like, nobody, like this white boy, you cannot convince him that this broke ass white boy is his people. You know what I mean? Like, are they the same racial group? Absolutely. Are they the same nation? Absolutely. Without a doubt. Are they both Americans? Like, that's without a doubt. Are they both white? Of course. But is he going to say that's my people? No. You understand? So I don't know. Like again, I would love to go. Like in Africa, a lot of this, the way how Fanon puts it in his Bid Medicine 9711. Anyway, the way how Fanon puts it in his book, right? The bourgeoisie, okay, are identify more with the foreign bourgeoisie than they do with the peasant. If you're like, basically there's a metropolis. Basically they have a city. Like your whole nation is going to be city, like the suburbs, the urban areas, the metropolis, and the farms, the peasants, right? The rural areas, right? The people in the urban areas are going to identify more with the foreign bourgeoisie than they will with the rural area. Just like if I'm in New York City, I'd actually identify more with somebody in Chicago than I would in somebody upstate New York. And let's say if we were white people would identify more with, like the city, the urban city, than they do so on and so forth. And actually, if you really think about it, like the Democrat and Republican Party is kind of like that dichotomy, where you have one party which is more so focused on the metropolis and the urban areas and like urban ethics and urban politics and so on and so forth. And the other one's more centered on rural and suburban ethics and suburban politics, And in a sense, a lot of times what we hear, at least white, Democrat political thinkers talk about is white people, what's his face? Like Democrats capturing either like the working class or the suburbs and all that kind of stuff, But it's like this identification that people have. So yeah, Nigeria is exactly that example. It's just that's what I'm saying. Like I think I said Nigeria, yeah. Nigeria is that example where it does have black people in the positions that you want, right? But at the same time, it's like what is the mentality? What are the value systems of these black people? Because if the value systems of a people is like, if somebody values PlayStation 5s, then the way how they're going to get the PlayStation 5 is not by following, it's either by following Japan or America, but it's not going to be by following you because you don't make PS5s, So I said they'll be confronted with Africa where young men and young women from Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, Mali, and Mauritania drown in the Mediterranean as they seek to be enslaved in Europe. This time around, Africans are not wailing and kicking as they're being taken away to be enslaved. They are being seen wailing and kicking as they seek to be enslaved in Europe and Africa and America. This is a tragedy of Africa. So we all know this. People are drowning in the Mediterranean to get away from Africa. You understand? People are, brother Machiavelli knows this. People in Africa today are like dropping big money in order to take one of these trips to Mauritania. And not big money, but like, their life savings, like $5,000 or something. Not that much, obviously, but still, you gather up your life savings in order to leave your country behind. Obviously a lot of people, and this is the thing a lot of people don't really get about, foreigners in these countries, is that they do actually try to send money back to where they used to be, but it's usually never enough. I was actually going in to get something done with my phone or whatever, and I saw this Jamaican youth, who walked into this, it was like an Arab store, because I had to get some customer service, and it wasn't even there, but it was a good experience in the sense that I saw this Jamaican boy walk in, and he's like, I'm just trying to send some money backyard or something like that. You know what I mean? But just send a little bit of, he's a little bit changed backyard. But the point is that this little boy, he looked kind of young, is sending money to Jamaica, and a lot of people do this. I don't remember what the name of it is called, but I know that my mother used to do that too. She used to support her mother in Jamaica, as did her siblings. A lot of people do that. They seek greener pastures, partly and sometimes to help the people back home. But the reality is that until we make Africa the greener pasture, it is, you're basically seeking to be enslaved by there. I don't even have to tell y'all that. Yeah, it's not all that it's cooked up to be. If you look at the history of the world, you'll realize that, this American living is not that great. Is it? Yeah, it's not. It's not that great. Is it better to be in the colonist world than the colonized world? Absolutely, right? You don't want to be if you're going to be in a colonial system, you'd rather be colonizing than colonized, just materially. But is there a world outside of colonization? Absolutely. And that's the world that we're supposed to be building or rebuilding. When the Portuguese came and saw this, I can't remember what country it was or what people it was, but they used to go to people in some country where they were living to 110 on average, or 90 or 80 on average. It's not what you would think of when you think of Africa today, right? But it's something that could be done or redone if we just said to ourselves, look, as pioneers, we can build a difference. We can change the world, right? So I said they'll be confronted with an Africa where people have lost their self-pride, an Africa where Africans are not proud of their things, an Africa where the hotels of Dar es Salaam and Nairobi, even food has foreign names. When we fry potatoes, we call them French fries, even when they are fried in Dar es Salaam. That is the Africa that we'll be confronted with. Now, obviously, I think this is just a joke because that's just the name of the recipe. It's a really simple recipe, obviously, but, I wouldn't really stress this at all, right? But, I think it was just sometimes you just put a joke in, I don't want people to sit at home and think this guy don't get jokes, so I'm just going to point that out. So they'll be confronted with another Africa, an Africa which does not tell her story, an Africa whose story is told by Europe and America, the CNN, Radio Deutsche Welle, Radio France. This is the Africa they'll be confronted with. And again, that's another example. You guys get that. And that's actually an issue too. Right now, I guess there is Arise News. So there is some African news outlets. But even to this day, if you're engaging people on, Africa or African subjects, a lot of us are borrowing from the European and American narrative, In fact, some of us are like CNN, Anyway, they'll be confronted with with young men and women who have no pride in Africa, where they want to enjoy themselves, but they sing the praises of football teams from Europe and America, and the Eurasian teams, not African. Not that it's the Africa that they'll be confronted with. So obviously he named those teams. I just took it out. But even today, we were watching the Olympics. At least some of the African countries showed out. But if it were the way how we sometimes justify rooting for colonizers is we say, oh, we'll root for anybody that's black. So a lot of those teams in Europe, those football teams in Europe do have a lot of black members. But again, it kind of goes back, if I'm really being honest, it goes back to us not caring for black leadership that much, us not caring for black rule that much, because those teams, those those teams that are led by, the NBA teams are Wazungu rule, Wazungu leadership, it is what it is, the value there behind it is that Wazungu rule, Wazungu leadership. In fact, once upon a time, the NFL used to limit the number of black quarterbacks. They used to not have any black quarterbacks or something like that. But it was kind of like, hey, even though these black folk could run fast and hit hard and all that kind of stuff, it's the white man's leadership. The quarterback is the intelligent, blah, 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 blah. And of course, like back to back, this one white boy has been winning left and right, even against, these powerful black, like these intelligent and skilled black quarterbacks. Some people think that things are rigged, but the message is clear, notwithstanding, But of course, I'm not really a sports guy, so, take that with a grain of salt. They'll be confronted with an Africa which does not enjoy theater and drama. That Africa celebrates Eurasian movie stars, celebrates Eurasian celebrities, and celebrates Eurasian fashion icons. So, he named them. You guys could check back and see what those people are. But I said this Africa does not celebrate Genevieve Naji of Nigeria, or Rita Dominic, or Olu Jacobs of Nigeria. It does not celebrate Bongo Wood or Nollywood or Riverwood. It celebrates Hollywood. That is the Africa which they would be confronted with. And, we might say, hey, people in Africa do celebrate Nollywood and Bongo Wood and Riverwood. But, like, if you saw the response that even black people in America have regarding the Black Panther, you kind of see what he's talking about, right? They would be confronted with African women whose greatest source of joy is cheap grade B Mexican soap operas. It could be Mexican, it could be Korean, it could be whatever. But, it is what it is, right? Must we remind ourselves of the realities? Because throughout the ages, the battle has always been the battle of the mind. And if your mind is conquered, then you are going nowhere. And therefore, if Africans are to begin to make a contribution in their affairs, Africans must begin to think. But the question is, are we thinking? We have a number of universities. Tanzania has universities, including Dar es Salaam. Nairobi has universities, as does Kampala, as does South Africa, Johannesburg. We have all these universities, right? And I just want to talk on this too. I was one time looking into one of these universities in Africa, and I'm like, maybe I could go, get me a PhD in Africa on physics. I'm looking at their department. It's like 4 people in the whole department for physics. When I was in, university in America, like the department, like the physics department was like 50, 60 people, different fields, highly industrialized, to be honest, highly industrialized experiments, different theoretical, whatever. I'm looking at what these professors did in this particular African university, and it's like they're like testing out something like you would do in a lab, like you would do in a lab course in America. It was almost like it's almost a joke. But of course, a lot of these universities are not set up the way how if you were truly about African liberation, you would set them up. And that's what I would encourage, about that WASET that I keep talking about, right? So he said, we have all these engineers, but our roads are not being made by Tanzanian civil engineers. It is the Chinese who are present in the assembly who are making our roads. And, this is another thing, we were talking about Haiti and Haiti, needing some new roads and infrastructure. And, Haiti went down to Jamaica, for instance, and built a highway. But they didn't use Jamaican engineers. They used their Chinese engineers. The thing is that when we talk about Haiti and the need for earthquake-proof housing, if you have engineers in Tanzania, then somebody just needs to invest that capital, hire those Tanzanian engineers, right? And say, hey, look, build this stuff in Haiti. It's really that simple. Like, a lot of times we have to realize is that money talks, wealth talks, capital talks, if you have these engineers, if you believe in these engineers, sure, you have these engineers, and there's something basic like building homes, right? Just hire them. You do this, right? You sell homes to Haiti, okay? Then what happens is this: Haitians get better homes, right? The Tanzanian engineers not only get experience, they get paid. They get work done. And if the homes are all that great, they can build them across the African diaspora and the African continent. Instead of doing that, what we do is we say, like I said, the leaders with their values or whatever, they don't say, hey, let's get these Tanzanian engineers, right? They say, China, can you do this? And China says, sure, we can do that. Obviously, we could do that. That's basic. That's simple. You could do it. But if you want me to do it, sure, pay me, pay me. And if you can't pay me, come in debt with me, owe me, right? And when you owe me, I'll take whatever I want in collateral. You do that. You sell out to me, and we're good. We family now. You understand? And all you had to do was say to yourself, hey, look, Let's get this capital together. If I don't have my individual wealth up, let's get this group wealth up to put these Africans, like make this Pan-African civil engineer organization. You know? Let's make this Pan-African civil engineering organization. Let's encourage our people to be civil engineers in order to build, earthquake-proof in this area, water-proof in that area, this, so on and so forth. Let's do that. But we don't. And then we wonder what's going on. So we have engineers who cannot even make roads. I mean, you look at Congo. There's this road in the Congo where you can lose your life turning the corner. You could be driving down this road and you make a left turn, but it's slippery, it's muddy. If it's wet and it's slippery, muddy, in fact, the camera crew, this is a documentary for the Congo, the camera crew that was recording what's going on in Congo, their car flipped over into a ditch while they were driving. Anybody could build a road. Of course you need capital. But anybody could build a road, and you're not doing that. There's a need for roads across Africa. There's a need for you could talk about high-speed rails and all that kind of stuff. You don't even have to talk about that. You just need roads. You just need repaired roads at this point, and you're not even doing that. All these engineers, you're not even doing that. Roads, basics. I could. You give me a book, I'll sit down with this book. I mean, you might give me a little bit of time, but you give me a little time with this book or a series of books, I could tell you how to build a road, right? Anybody could do that. Anybody could put down the work and learn how to build these roads, but we're not doing it. And then we wonder what's going on with us, right? Amma Bootman says remittances, so that's when you go back. Bit of Medicine reminds everybody hit that like button, so make sure y'all hit that like button. So he says, we have doctors whom we have trained, but when we are sick, particularly if we have the political class, depending on who colonized you, if you are colonized by the United Kingdoms, you rush to London. If you are colonized by the French, you rush to Paris. If you are colonized by the Portuguese, you rush to Lisbon. And if you are colonized by the Spaniards, you rush to Madrid, Spain. And recently, because the Asians are getting their act together, we run to India. And very lately, because the Arabs are also beginning to get their act together, we run to Dubai, notwithstanding that we have the Kenyatta Hospital of this country, the Muhimbili of Tanzania, and the Chris Hani Barangaweth of South Africa, and the Mama Yemo of Kinshasa and Zaire, or the Democratic Republic of Congo. But we have no faith in our doctors. Now, again, I do want to really remind you that, yeah, everybody's seeking greener pastures. Like, as an individual, if it's available to you, you do go to Manhattan. And if not, you go to Cuba or something. Like whatever you have, whatever's in your budget, whatever you can afford, you do. Because when you talk about medical emergencies, as an individual, you don't really try to prove a point, in a medical emergency. Obviously, there's also the notion of not really having faith in these white folks. So that might be a thing where you don't want to go to whatever is the best available to white folk. But again, I wouldn't even, like, I understand that a lot of people say this stuff, but I also get why people as individuals do this stuff, because, you could, like, people have local hospitals or local clinics right near them, and they skip over them to go to big named hospitals, and that's for a reason. It's not to say that you don't necessarily have faith with your doctors, but you also realize that, as an individual, you want the best service available to you. Now, should that best service be in Africa? Absolutely. Should it be in Africa? Absolutely. But if you're not of the impression that it is, then I completely understand why you'd leave. I think that it would behoove us, and that's why I say about greener pastures, we can't critique, like, have any of us been to any of these hospitals? And if we have any of us tried to develop these hospitals? Have you made a donation to Kenyatta Hospital? Have you offered to supplement the income of any foreigner who decides to work in Kenyatta Hospital? One of the things I could say, for instance, this is a big hospital in America, in New York, called, let's say, NYU Hospital, right? NYU Hospital is actively looking to get the best doctors from around the world, the best surgeons, the best this, the best, blah, blah, blah. They're actively looking to get the best hospitals from around the world. So they're going to, Paris, and they're like, hey, would you like to, practice medicine in this place? We'll pay you some big money, right? This is what CEOs do. CEOs are looking for to expand their business and so on and so forth. This Kenyatta hospital, this Muhimbili hospital, definitely probably great hospitals. Mama Yemo, Mama Yemo is probably a great hospital, right? But is it actively trying to recruit new students, new top graduates in order to be the best medical institution on the planet? Probably not. And if it's not paying people to do the best medical service, then it's almost like a no-brainer why somebody would go to another place. I'm not saying that I believe that I'd prefer if Mama Yemo was that top tier hospital. But I also understand that if I'm a politician that can afford to go somewhere else, that's what every individual does. Like I said, if my neighbor gets sick, they're going to try to go to a hospital as far as possible, as far as their budget can take them. And that's what it is. Like if you're a politician in Africa, though, your budget can take you pretty damn far, But anyway, in the area of education, we also don't have faith. Our political class introduced something that they call free education, but it's free indeed, free of knowledge. Because they are so suspicious of these institutions, the typical African politician would not dare take their children to those schools. The children will be educated in the British system and the American system, so that when they graduate, they go to the United Kingdom or the United States. Not only is there something wrong with those institutions, see, I wrote down that there's something wrong with those institutions, but the agenda is wrong. Because our leaders long lost, because he said there was nothing wrong with those institutions. But I'm saying, forget it. There's something wrong with it, right? But the agenda is wrong because our leaders long lost the script and ought to be described for who they are, our misleaders. But, again, I do want to just clarify again, right? Like they don't have the best curriculum. And their curriculum, they know this. Like I said, it's Boko Waset Nakido. They know their curriculum doesn't lead to anything. Okay? The way how schools have to lead to something. If you are educating somebody and it doesn't lead to anything, then you miseducated them. You understand? This is one of the issues that we have as an African people, that we kind of educate other people. Like we educate our people, like we give our people knowledge, right? We're like, hey man, make sure you read Chancellor Williams' Destruction of Black Civilization. But if it doesn't lead to anything really transformative or really substantial, really substantive, then I could see why they don't read it. You know what I mean? One of the things, when I prefaced my own book, I said, look, don't just read this book. Read it with others. Work with others after you read the book. Do something. Work. Because theory, words do not do that much. So if you're in a school in Africa and they're teaching you your, 1, 2, 3 or whatever, that's fine. But you realize that you're not going to, the politician knows that, hey, you're not going to be an engineer from this. If you want to be an engineer, you have to go through the British system or the American system and then go graduate from the British Academy of Engineering or something. Go to the University of Engineering or whatever. But that's what you understand. If you want your kid, because again, greener pastures, you want your kid to be a world-class engineer, you send them to a world-class educational institution. Or you send them to a system that creates world-class engineers. If you know that you just put that system together to busy kids, in your country, better. If you know that, then yeah, forget it. It's not a good thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but we have to understand what's going on, And of course, hear this too. It tells you that there are needs in Africa. There are needs for Mama Yemo, right? To be that better medical institution. Not because you want the politicians, his family, not because you want them, but because you understand that our people need to have better medical care available to them, right? And not just that, it also tells you about insurance, how insurance could, an insurance company, a medical insurance company could be helpful in Africa, right? But here's this. The free education or the education system, that means the curriculum has to be emboldened. That the curriculum has to put out futures for people. Bit of Medicine Podcast is often talking about developing curriculum. So make sure you guys check out his work and his channel, right? But anyway, so this is actually the last paragraph, which is too bad, right? All right. But we are co-authors of our own misfortune. Okay? Whenever we are given an opportunity to elect our leaders, we are given a blank check. And if you permit me a little latitude, if you give me a blank check and allow me to analyze, you say that I'm given the blank check to buy an expensive car. What we do is when we are called upon, having been so empowered, we buy a crappy, low quality car and expect it to behave like an expensive one. How does that happen? Because what we do is we elect thieves. We elect hyenas to take care of the goats. And when the goats are consumed, we wonder why. You know, you go back to, I said he was trying to do his election and he lost and whatever. But it's like you have these hyenas in power. These hyenas are ruling the authorities, the local authorities. As Harsh Reality Podcast pointed out, in Nigeria, the police are brutalizing African people there, right? They're doing this, and it's like we elected the Fulani of Nigeria elected Buhari. Buhari said, "Oh yeah, the Igbo didn't vote for me, and the so on and so forth didn't vote for me," but the Fulani elected Buhari. Okay, he's taking care of the goats. He's the hyena, if you will, right? I forgot. I'm not supposed to talk about no leadership, but like the point is that you elect these people, okay? And it's not to say that there wasn't you could have had a Pan-African candidate who was about all of Africa, about all the different ethnic groups, and about building it up. No, but there might have been an Igbo candidate, might have been a Yoruba candidate, there might have been a Fulani candidate, and the Fulani have voted in the Fulani candidate. They were the majority. They voted in the Fulani candidate, and the Igbo and the Yoruba who could have, the Igbo, let's say the good among the Yoruba, the good among the Igbo, the good among the Fulani could have worked together, had their own politician, and made their own and won the election, and so on and so forth, or expand the good and all that kind of stuff. They could have done that, but instead of doing that, they did this, and now you have what you have. Right? We are the co-authors of our misfortune. And you have to realize, if you were to look into, actually, let's see if we could actually find it. If you were to look into Buhari's education, you probably could tell a lot about it. So let me see if it's one of those examples. Oh, well, this guy was clearly, what the freak? All right, let me. You guys got shit. All right, let me see if I can show it to you, because this is just a little bit ridiculous at this point. But yeah, so like boom, like you don't even gotta look. I mean, I thought it would have been something a little bit less on the nose, right? But Nigeria Military Training College, then Nigeria Military Training College, then Mons Officer Cadet School, then Defense Service Staff College, then U.S. Army War College. I mean, this is on the nose. Like, this is not even like, well, it could be. Like, this guy was clearly elected for either, to be a career soldier, obviously. He used to be a general, obviously. But also, like, you see the American connection. It's on the nose. I don't even know the history of the Nigerian Military Training College. I might as well look that up. I don't know if it's Nigeria Defense Academy. It might be the same thing. But yeah, it's probably like, who set it up? It was the only military university in Nigeria. Question is, who set it up? Okay, maybe it might be this. 3,500 students, so it's a rare student thing. Commandant is General I am Yusuf. Patterns are similar to India, but yeah, pretty much you'd want to know who. This is the alumni. Pretty established people too. Abacha, this guy was the dictator of. This is almost funny. All right, so the former dictator of Nigeria that like really stole the whole bag was a alumni. Governor of Kaduna, coup leader, so on and so forth. I don't know who set up this university. It could be African people. Oh no, as a reformation of the British-run Royal Military Training College. So it was pretty much the British military training college, and they established it as so on and so forth. So yeah, I wonder what, like, even this, you want to do that, you could trace the money. Who is paying for this now? You know, that would be an interesting question. I don't know if I should search it right now. Let's see, funding. I don't know if it won't be that obvious, but you guys get it. Let's see. Kids get paid. School gets paid. Receives a grant, 19 billion naira. Let's see from whom though. Yeah, I know. I'm just clicking links too quickly. Chief of Army. All right, you guys. That's what I would recommend. You do your research, see where the money comes from, where so on and so forth. But like I said, the guy graduates from this institution, then goes into the U.S. Army kind of thing, makes his little connections, and then he comes back and he rules over Africa. He rules over Nigeria, kind of nonsense. You know, that right there is already like hint number one, right? Do your research, show your thing. But it's like you put that guy into the leadership, right? After, like, you know, what they say about military people is that, you know, if every problem looks like a hammer, if like to a hammer, every problem looks like a nail, you know? You put the military guy in charge and then you wonder why he's not developing the economy well, you know? At what point in his education do you think that he was learning, like, how to develop an economy of another country? You know, of a country. At what point in that long, illustrious educational experience that he had, do you believe that he was not going to use force to exercise his will? If you look at the alumni of the, you know, of the institution, including Abacha, who was just this brutal theft, right? This brutal thief. At what point do you think, hey, this is a guy who's going to build a high-speed railing through Nigeria? This is the guy who's going to build that road to Accra. This is that guy who's going to set up trade with the Congo or somewhere. Like, at what point? And you want him to behave like the expensive car, right? You want him to behave like the expensive car, but clearly this is a soldier for hire. An American trained, partially American trained soldier for hire. You know? Clearly he's not even, he's a part of the class of people who were defending the capital of the conqueror. What I mean by that is that the military learns how to learns discipline and obedience to the political structure, right? They do not learn how to innovate or allocate resources. What they learn to do is suppress the population that would threaten the political structure. Okay? So his training is to suppress and oppress people. That's what his training is. You look at his reputation before the British left. Like, the people who study there in the British Academy of Military were not learning how to rule the colony of Nigeria. Okay, there were other universities for that. The people who graduated from that institution were learning how to serve those who ruled the colony of Nigeria. They were learning how to suppress the Nigerian population. There is absolutely no reason to think that people by that education would do anything but oppress and suppress their people. I'm actually surprised that it was that on the nose. You know, I was expecting, you know, some University of Delaware, because there's some African leaders who graduated from University of Delaware. So I was thinking, or DeVry University or something. I was going to joke about the quality of education available at those institutions. This guy didn't have even that. He didn't have liberal arts classes. He didn't have any of that. He had military, then U.S. military, right? And if you understand the role of the military, goes back to Plato, in fact. Plato describes it pretty easily. And, you know, Plato is what, you know, they say all European philosophy is a footnote to Plato. In the Republic, Plato describes three classes of people. He describes the ruling class, you know, he describes the auxiliary, and he describes the the tradespeople, the workers, pretty much, right? And what he said, or what he articulates, or what I, you know, put together is that, you know, the auxiliary, the people who defend the ruling class, defend the ruling class for the purpose, or the leadership points the leader, the auxiliary, the military, the so on and so forth, either against the enemies of the state externally or the enemies of the state internally. This guy clearly is like, his education is just towards, not towards ruling, not towards a ruling class, not towards that quote unquote philosopher king that Plato would say or whatever, right? But towards oppressing and suppressing the other people who might act out of line. It's almost like ridiculous. I can't even, like I said, you're co-authors of your own misfortune. What you would want to do is, like I said, you want to build up your own independent African institutions. You build up your WASET, and then the graduates of WASET can be that expensive car because you've actually put into them. But if other people have put into their education, if other people, or if their education is just towards being that defense system, you do not put them in the leadership seat. And the thing is that when Buhari or Abacha or whomever took over the government, when they did that coup, made a little bit of sense why they were in power. When you elect them, like, come on. How did this happen? How are the goats gone? We elected hyenas. Come on. Anyway, that was the speech. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did or didn't, if you did, make sure you drop a like. Drop a like, share it with other people. And hopefully I'll hear from you another time. Oh, also make sure you pick up this book. I worked hard on it, obviously, and I want you to work hard on it too. As to say, read it and enjoy it. Drop me some reviews. I got like 17 ratings on Amazon now. Most of them 5 stars, which is great. But also I want some more reviews. If not for that. So thank you so much, and until next time. Shem Hotep.